Good morning and happy Thursday. I'm sort of waiting still for Photoshop to load. It's been loading for about a minute and a half now. So we'll just chat while we wait for Photoshop to load, which is kind of interesting. Um, so it's Thursday, and one of the things that I do spend some time on is Good Morning, Fred. We'll probably work on your pieces today since you're here. Um, but I'm still waiting for Photoshop to load. We're now on 3 minutes since I started trying to load Photoshop. So I think there might be something wrong with my new computer. I'm sad to say that, but it is taking a very long time to do anything. 3 minutes to load Photoshop is markedly longer than the previous computer by a long shot. So, um, we started with the concept of replacing just the video card and kind of got sold on the idea of a new computer here and one that's custom built for this. And it has been slowing down this entire time. And I'm having kind of a problem with that. That's fine, Donald. It's good to have you here. It's good to have you here. So we're still waiting for Photoshop. We're now on 4 minutes since I double clicked on Photoshop to start it. So we'll see how long it takes to get Photoshop in. And that's okay. We're still waiting. You can see it kind of right here. You can see the little start screen, and it's still kind of going. So we're gonna keep going here and just keep chatting until Photoshop gets on itself going on here. Um, oh, there we go. Looks like it started. This is also something interesting from this version of Photoshop. It doesn't. I keep moving it over to this monitor, and it won't stay here. It keeps insisting on restarting in the main monitor, which is fine, but that's not where I work on Photoshop. I work on Photoshop. Here we go. So we're at 5 minutes, almost six before we're ready to start. Okay, we're at 6 minutes now. So 6 minutes into the show when Photoshop actually started. That's okay, Donald. It's good to have you here today. Um, and it's really kind of cool. All you really missed was I was working on Adobe Fresco, which is a program that Adobe recommended that I use since I paint a lot in Photoshop. And I think they're trying to get people to diversify. But what I discovered was that Fresco needed pinch commands and touch commands, and this is not a touch monitor. So it only works with my stylus, and I intentionally bought this monitor that way. The way I draw is that I will draw and then I lift up like this, and then I draw and then I lift up. And when I do, the stylus comes far enough away that the surfaces of these monitors will sense that the pen's not there anymore. And so what happens is I'll draw and I'll lift up, and then it'll take this as a touch command. So I have a lot of drawing and then touch, and it selects stuff and the mouse moves and things like that. So I either have to wear a glove, which prevents the touch sensitivity, or I just have to put up with the fact that my cursor will draw and then all of a sudden draw down here and then go back up here and then draw down here. So it's better for me to just have a non-touch monitor. That works a whole lot better. Everybody's different. Everybody's got like a different thing. So that's not a real problem. The question is, new computer, new download from everywhere. Well, and we're waiting now for Explorer to come up. We are definitely experiencing a problem here, because I actually cannot see Explorer either. So just trying to get loaded has cost us 7 minutes. But I can bring up this guy in the spotlight window here. Spotlight me. There we go. Well, we're now 2 minutes into this. Wow. I still don't have Explorer over here yet. I agree. I shouldn't get loaded on the show. I also agree that all different people is indeed the spice of life. Wow. We are now 2.5 minutes into opening up Explorer. Something's definitely going on here. Good news is that, obviously, if I can get my PC people to watch this episode, they could see what's going on here. Because I managed to videotape it. I'll move this over so you can see that screen. Because I think what I'm probably going to end up doing is asking the people at my computer company to take a look at this video and see what's going on here. Because you can see that we're now 3 minutes in and we still don't have Explorer up. What I will do is do a virus check, of course, on here. But I can't imagine how I would have gotten a virus within 3 days. That seems kind of silly. So, I don't know. This copy of Windows started out kind of rough. It was asking me for the key early on and then didn't update, and strange stuff like that occurred. So it may be that this copy of Windows is a little borked. We'll have to see. I don't know. It might straighten up with a update. Who knows? Who knows? Wow, we are literally 5 minutes into clicking my Explorer. I can't actually load anything because I don't have Explorer here. I don't actually have the ability to select on a drive. So I was going to work on Fred's piece here, but I don't seem to have capability to explore anything. Let's try it again. Maybe it'll be faster if I just click on it again. No. No, it won't. Well, we may be experiencing technical issues. You know what I need is to have like a technical difficulties panel page here. Since I've spent the last 11 minutes just trying to load Photoshop and load my Explorer, we are now kind of 11 minutes in on the show, and that's kind of brutal. Yeah, I know. I need some holy water and some salt and a werewolf howl. Get the gremlins out of the machine. And give it a shot here. What we can do is work on whatever was already preloaded on Photoshop, but that's all buildings and things like that I was working on for Bellatrix Rising. I don't know, guys. I think we have a problem. I'm just trying to get File Explorer to open. I think it's interesting, though, that Restream is working beautifully. Restream's doing just fine. I seem to be broadcasting okay. I seem to be going through the camera okay. We just seem to have an Explorer issue. I don't know exactly what's going on with Explorer, or why I'm having such problems with it this morning. Hmm. Okay, so the first 13 minutes of my show has been waiting for Explorer to load. This isn't good. Yeah, good morning, Brent. I hope it's no virus as well. I can't imagine how I would have picked up a virus right off the bat. I haven't really done it for about a week. So, Brent, we're waiting for Explorer to load. If you're wondering what's going on here, we're waiting for Explorer to load. Um, it took almost the first 4 minutes of the show just to get Photoshop loaded. And I don't know what's going on here. This is just Explorer. I'm just looking for just the basic C drive over here, and I'm having a problem with that. So I don't know what's going on, and it's now 14 minutes into the show, and I can't actually access any of my stuff at the moment. So I'm having kind of a problem there. So I'm not. Ah, there we go. Explorer just came up. That took 5 minutes. Literally 5 minutes. That's what Task Manager has to say. There we go. Well, it says that Chrome's taking most of my power usage. Well, let's see. Performance. Looks like it's disk. It's the biggest problem. Here, let's put this over here. And then I will share it. Nope, I won't share it. I'll share it. Here we go. Look, CPU. There we go. There's the CPU usage. Right? Fred's like, yay! Finally, Windows does its most basic function. Okay. This is where we are. The memory is only about 38% full, which doesn't surprise me. We are running on my GPU, which doesn't surprise me. What gets me is that it's a platter. I couldn't afford the SSD. I wanted to, and I just really couldn't afford it. It was a little bit more out of my price range than I could afford. This was a pretty expensive piece of machinery, so it was kind of going there on that one. Looks like the hard drive's finally starting to come down from insanity here. But it looks like it was seriously writing for a while there. Now, tell me this, you guys. I have OneDrive and Google Drive both running, but I've got Google Drive throttled. So it shouldn't be running at full speed, and OneDrive has already synchronized. So I bought a well, I know I should have gone SSD. It was another $200. I didn't have the extra $200. I need more people paying my Patreon for me to get to that level. But I mean, even then, I had platters in the old machine, and it didn't take 5 minutes to load. I mean, it took time. I don't know if I might have room for an SSD. That might not be a bad plan. But again, I don't think okay, let me back up. That would be lovely, Brent. Thank you very much. However, 5 minutes to load, even on my old platters that were 5 years old, that never happened. I never had 5 minutes to load on those platters back there. Um, okay, so why? Hmm. Because looking at this, I can see that yeah, the C drive is seriously maxed. The other thing is my Google Drive is set to my D drive, which is not doing anything. So it's not the Google Drive, but it definitely is maxed out on that C drive. Maybe I've never actually looked at this before. Um, Maybe Restream is. I don't know if Restream is going to the C drive before it broadcasts. I don't think it is. If we look at the processes here, we can see that Chrome is taking up a lot, but it's the biggest chunk of everything seems to be Google Drive. So maybe I need to stop Google Drive. Yeah, I expected Chrome to do that. So I'll pause Google Drive, but it still holds that much memory. Hmm. And even then, Restream's not taking up a lot of my space. I don't know, man. Oh, look at that. Okay, so riddle me this, Batman. Google Google Drive Sync is set to be saving everything to my D drive. Why is my C drive getting maxed out? What's going on there? Is that the Google Drive is so? Okay, there's a story. Welcome to my story. Story time. It's story time. So I'll change the spotlight here. We'll keep that down in the corner. So I've been working on all of my family photos and things like that for a long time, and the family photos are very important. I've got family photos that go back to the 1800s for our family, and I do the digital work and clean them up and make them nice and pretty, and then straighten them out. And actually, maybe that's what we'll do today. Maybe I'll show you how I straighten out some of these pictures so you can kind of get an idea. Seeing as how we've kind of lost already 21 minutes in here um, on the show, but I think that so I bought this dock for docking SATA drives, and I took the two drives out of my old computer and I put them on the dock up here and plugged it into the computer, and it was fine. I started copying. I got about 15% through on one of the drives when that drive started throwing errors. It started saying this file is um, this file is corrupted or not available. The good news is all of my work is on my OneDrive. So my OneDrive had already synchronized, and I already had all of the stuff that I'm doing for Fred, all of the stuff that I'm doing for Earth Tau, and for Ron. All of those were fine. They're safe. They're on my OneDrive. So they synchronized back in, and everything's okay. But it was the old photos from the family that's a terabyte worth of photos. I've been scanning things in over here. Um, all the pictures from my grandparents and all the pictures from everything like that. I've been scanning them all in and then cleaning them up and then dating them and putting them in the correct locations in the right years. That's all on these hard drives. So I plugged these hard drives in and one of them started throwing errors. Well, okay, so probably it was an old hard drive. So I scrambled to get as much as I could out of it, and then it finally stopped working. Well, then the other one started throwing errors. And then I couldn't get to all of the pictures in time. And so I had originally kept all of this on my 1 terabyte Google Drive. And the Google Drive got confused about 3 years ago and they duplicated everything. So I had to unduplicate stuff and fix all this stuff that had to go on with my Google Drive. I had disabled my Google Drive from my old computer because I was reorganizing the Google Drive on my new on the hard drive locally. I was originally going to delete everything off of the Google Drive, but now it's the only backup of all of these pictures that I've got. So I've been kind of working to restore what I have off of cloud drives because clearly it's destroyed. That dock apparently is bad. And I've written to the company, and their response was to refund my $30 for the dock. Now, it doesn't help any when I'm going to have to spend $200 to restore that drive. So, because the drives for you, Brent, because I know you're into this, the drive has been stripped of its NTFS header. It's now all in RAW. So anytime you plug it in, the computer just thinks you've plugged in a blank hard drive and wants to format it. I run CheckDisk on it, and CheckDisk said it can't find the initial header and it cannot find the secondary header on either drive. So somehow that dock has wiped out the headers on it. I'm sure I could probably just read the data raw off of there somehow, but I don't have the technology or the know-how to do that at this time. So sadly, that's where we are. And that's a rough one. So I think actually now let's check this, but I'd be willing to bet that we are able to load pictures, yeah, at a reasonable time. Okay, so now I guess our culprit is Google Drive. So I think Google Drive is just going to have to be paused every time I run my show. So I guess it's the culprit. Anyway, the long and the short of it is, over the next however many days, 1 terabyte of data is being downloaded from Google onto this computer so that I can get the backup back. It's actually kind of scary. All of my Tamerlan files are on the cloud or on that backup or on that hard drive. So, the entire comic book of Tamerlan, it would be gone if I couldn't manage to find a way to retrieve it. So I'm actually kind of lucky that I didn't delete everything off of the Google Drive like I had intended to do, because that was the next step, was wipe out the Google Drive and re-upload what I had been sorting locally to the Google Drive. So we lucked out. So all is good here. It looks like once the Google Drive is turned off, it looks like we're acting nominal again. So, that would be great. If you know of knowing that it no longer has an NTFS file system on any of them, I can open up the side here. I've put in a data cable, and on this side, I've got the ability to just take this door off, and then I can pull the power line out, and I can pull a data line out for a SATA drive, and just sit the drive right here. And I usually actually sit it right up here because it's about up here. And I can run the drive as a secondary drive, so I don't need to do the dock. And really, I just need it live long enough to figure out, or to copy everything to the 6 terabyte that's on board. Once I've got the 6 terabytes, once I've got it moved over, it can die. But I mean, now we're down to if the Google Drive synchronizes, all of my family photos will be fine. And it also looked like I managed to copy some of the family photos over before the drive went down. So there's that. So that's good. That's a plus. We've got some nice stuff going on there in that case. It looks like the Google Drives are main culprit here. So, okay. So, I have gone through here and I was looking at our family photos. And I was going to talk about a little bit here real quickly because I think it's kind of cool. Um, on my drive, my OneDrive, I have family photos, which are right here. And one thing I've noticed with a lot of my family photos is that, especially from the 70s, things things are already washed out. Let's look at the 60s here. We get some washed out stuff. So I'm going to pull up, not this one, because we've already fixed this one. Let's look at this one. Not that one, I've already fixed that one too. Trying to find some of the things that like here are my dad and mom's wedding pictures and stuff like that. This is kind of like really important family photos. Um, my mom and dad's wedding pictures are like critical, right? I mean, what's so funny is some of the stuff that's in here is really hysterical. Some of the stories that go with. I love things like this picture here. This is one of my favorites, right? This is my dad going to my mom's house to propose, and my grandfather in the background because they are all goofy. This was obviously this was staged, but it's still Texas. This is just so Texas, and it's just funny. So there's that. No, my grandfather never really wanted to shoot my dad. Actually, my grandfather and my dad got along very well. Um, See you later. Yeah, tell me what you get, and I will chat with you later about it, Brent. Thank you. So Brent is going to be looking for open source software that he can use to find or to help out on this one. So okay, so it looks like really the 60s are okay. I fixed most of that stuff. But here's a good one. No, these are all fixed too. Let's not mess with ones that are already fixed. So let's see. I'm just looking around for a good example of a picture that needs to be restored. I've done a lot of restoration, so a lot of these are already done. They're already fixed. So it's kind of hard to tell which ones really need to be repaired, which ones don't. I just moved one over, right? Okay, let's take a look at this. Okay, this is good. So we'll switch over and let's give a look at this. All right, so uh, that's me at 1 year old. So there you go, 1 year old me. It's my mom and my grandfather. And we're going to talk a little bit about like just this sort of kind of photo. We have, I guess my grandfather was about to sneeze here, it looks like almost. So we'll talk about a little bit about how to adjust these. The first thing I will always do is go to image adjustments and levels. I can already see right now that we've got, we need to darken this picture. This spike right here is this, which isn't anything useful. That's not useful data. So I'll bring the black down to the first point where I actually see data. And then the white doesn't need to seem to be adjusted, which is okay. Then I'll do it again. And the reason I do this twice is because now you can see that it has readjusted the photo. But I'm going to go to just the blues, and I can see already that the blues need to be adjusted. So I'll bring the black down to the first part of data there, and I'll bring the white up to the first point of data. Then I'll go to green, and I'll do the same thing. Right? Then I'll go to red. The red looks like it's fine. And you can see now the colors have become much more natural, and they've straightened up. Right? By just doing that, I've spread out all the greens across the spectrum, all the blues across the spectrum, and all the reds across the spectrum, so that they're all uniform. And that's what happens with these old photos, is one set of color groups will start to squish out, and you get an odd color for that. Now, there's nothing I can really do about these horrible cameras. They're just horrible, and there's not much you can do about that. So these are always going to be kind of from far away. It doesn't help any that this photo was at the end of the reel, and I think this was at the other end of the reel. I'm not 100% sure. So there's that. And then now that I've done that, now I can go ahead and just take a look at whether there's something that I want to fix on this. Like, do I want to change the hue and saturation? Right? Does it need to be more saturated? Does it need to be less saturated? That allows a little bit more color to come in. These older photos lose their color. Right? Lightness, darkness, we can adjust that. That doesn't seem to need to be adjusted at all. That one's fine. And its hue is okay at this point. So I'm going to just look at that. You can also do this through vibrance, which is here. The vibrance also gives you more color or less color. You know, you can pump up the vibrance a little, and that makes it look a little bit better. Right? We'll go down here and do the same thing with this photo. Yeah. What I love about this photo is that's me. You just can't tell. So we'll do the same thing. We'll check its levels. This is that black area right here. This is that. So I'm just going to crunch it down like this. Okay. Adjustments. Levels. And the blue is low. So I'm going to bring that up. Green. And the green is slightly low too. And then red. And the red looks like it's skewed. Right? I think this is still this area right here. And actually you can see that I think we may have misjudged up here, because this looks more like my mom. And that looks more like the right colors in here. Whereas this still looks a little red. So I'm thinking this spike right here is this black area. So I'm going to go to right here, and then hit OK. I'm going to go back up to this picture because now I have learned my lesson. And I'm going to go ahead and say image adjustments levels. We're going to go back to red. That's this spike right here. You can see that spike. And there we go. That looks much more like it. Papa's shirt was blue, and his pants were blue as well, which I think is funny. That's okay. We're talking about grandparents. Matilda was a neighbor, and she never smiled, which is kind of funny. She never smiled. I mean, I remember her smiling as a kid. I remember her smiling. I wonder what happened. She was such a nice person. I remember her smiling, but I don't think she ever smiled in pictures. It's like my grandmother. My grandmother did the same thing. We've got a small amount down here on either side, so I'm going to disregard this spike right here and bring the white up to here. On the blue, we're going to do the same thing with the green. We're going to just adjust here and adjust there. And then we're going to look at red. And that's exactly what I saw in the other pictures. So I'm going to bring the red down to there. Like that. And that's how you adjust the picture. Notice that it now looks pretty legitimate, like it's a real picture. I mean, it looks like a photograph that would have been taken Now, to adjust for the 1970s, you simply don't wear polyester pants that are pink. That's how you adjust for the 1970s. No, to adjust for the 1970s pictures, I actually always will bring up vibrance, and it makes it look like a much more modern photo. You can see how much dropping the vibrance down and raising the vibrance up. I don't bring it up all the way, but I do bring it up like 60, plus 60, or something like that. And that gives me a much cleaner, much more colorful picture. So there's that. I'm also going to bring up the vibrance on this one. And then into the 60s there, something like that. There we go. And that brings that color into much more sharp focus. So, you can't fix anything about me. I'm just horribly overexposed, which, we are dealing with photographs of my childhood, so there's a certain amount of truth to the being overexposed part here. Extend that out a little. I'm going to rotate this picture just so they're all in the same place. Not exactly sure. This picture is not aligned properly, so I'm going to rotate it. Until it is aligned properly. Right there. I don't know what happened to Matilda. She was cool. I dug her. She was neat. But it's interesting that. So there's like a thing with people of Matilda's age. My grandmother was of the same age. They never smiled in pictures. And, when I was younger, I thought it had to do something with, of course, when I was younger, I thought they were old enough to have been taking pictures in the 1800s. They weren't. Even my grandmother was born in 1920. So by then we had fast enough shutters that it wasn't a shutter issue like it was in the 1800s. But they didn't smile in pictures, generally speaking. And my grandmother didn't either. And my dad asked my grandmother once why. And my grandmother felt like she had funny teeth. So she didn't like to show her teeth in a picture, but it didn't explain why she didn't, smile. She always just kind of like... So you look at pictures of my grandmother, who was one of the sweetest people on the planet, and she looks stern every time. It's kind of funny. Okay. So there you go. I've wanted to always do this. I was 1 year old, apparently. Guy, Matilda, Donna. I know where this apartment is. It's in Houston. I found it once. Terra Hills, I think is what it was called. I don't think it's there anymore. But the area they were living in, they had astronauts with them, which was really cool as well. So went on ahead and just cleaned up these pictures just to make them a little bit sharper, try to make them fine. I'm going to save this as it was. And I never found a real reason to go above a number 10 on quality. That's a pretty maximum sort of thing. So there's more pictures of me, Mom, and Matilda, and my grandma, my other grandma. Yeah, there you go. So I can clean these pictures up, and I probably ought to just add them to this piece. Right, so let's go ahead and open them real quick. And we'll do this for another 15 minutes, and then I'm going to switch to Fred. Now that we seem to have a computer running, now that I know that our problem really is the Google Drive, I'll just wait till night and keep synchronizing every night for the Google Drive. So, okay, same thing goes over here. I'm going to, what I'm doing here is I'm using the crop tool to extend out the photograph to the right. These all look like they might be able to. I don't like to batch these together. Excuse me, batch these together. Because when I batch them together, I end up with kind of funny things. So this spike right here is this white area. So that's not part of this. That's not part of the picture. So I'm going to go on ahead and go to here for the black and the white. Right? Hit Control L is levels. And we'll check this again. So the blue needs to come up. The green needs to come down just a hair. And the red is completely screwed up. There we go. Now everything's starting to show. Now, one of the things I'm noticing, though, is I feel like this is still washed out over here. So these three pictures seem to be fine. This one doesn't seem to be. Well, no, this one, she looks a little washed out in her hair up there, too. So what this means to me is I don't want to do the levels on these pictures together as a group. I want to do them individually. Because they're all slightly different. So checking my levels here, we go down here, and we bring it up to there. Okay. We'll do the levels one more time. And this is where we adjust the blues, which really needs help. Is it there? Nope. It's there. That's the wall line that I'm seeing. The greens, bring it down, bring this up, and then the reds. Adjust to red. There we go. Now, I don't need to do the vibrance thing until after I've gotten all four of these pictures organized. Levels. That's my mom. Her birthday was 10 days ago. And we celebrated it by making steak, which was something she really loved. She loves steak. Mom loves steak. Okay, and adjusting the reds for this one, you can see how we're getting color shift. That's me. Right here. I'm obviously upset. I don't know why I'm upset. I'm upset. I see this black line is an end of film, so I'm going to go past that. I can see it right there. That's what that is. So I'm going to do that. And then I'll be able to make my adjustments for it. But I'm also noticing things like this. There's too much. Some of these pictures really get badly damaged over the years as time goes on. These old pictures, they can be restored pretty well using Photoshop. So this is kind of useful in that way. I still feel like this is washed out in her hair, but that might be because she was close to the flash. But you see, she's still not smiling. I don't know what the story is there. Of course, I was a kid. And this was the South. Anything could have been happening. I mean, I remember Matilda just as she was, just some nice lady who lived next door. But we're talking about the South, and we are talking about early 70s. There could have been static between my grandmother and her. There could have been all kinds of stuff. Who knows what happened? So it's possible that the reason she never smiled was because she was not happy. I mean, I don't know. Anything could have happened. Same thing over here. Bring this down, bring that up. I don't like to think ill of people, but, you know, the reality is the reality. It is what it is. Green looks good, although I feel like that is this line right here. It's the chatter on either side. Give that a adjustment. Okay. Now, see, this one I still feel like it's just like the other one. It's not white. Like, it could be darkened out through the middle here a little washed out. There we go. Pink. Her pants are pink. Not even really sure how to handle this. And I'm going to just bring the crop back in. There's no reason to keep all this extra white on the outside. Just bring the crop back in. I also feel like this first picture right here needs to be just right from there. Now what I'll do is take the whole thing and we'll adjust the vibrance. A little bit more vibrance always makes these pictures look a little bit more like they were taken today and a little less like they were taken a long time ago. Okay. There we go. The truth is, these are all the same moment, August 1973. So these are all the same set of things. Same grouping, the same moment. I mean, it's not, I mean, I'm sure this probably took all day, but it's the same era. So the question really is whether I should just take this guy and just extend him to the right, like that. And then I can just take all of these, all copy, paste. Right, I'll just keep going. I'm going to put this right here, like this. There we go. And really, I should just save this as one. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pictures. They were all part of this little set. And these are all here, and they're all fine, and everything's okay. And so we'll just save this. And in this one, we don't have to save. Right? Because now all of the pictures are in one spot. There we go. And that's how you do some basic correction. I've had some far worse ones in the 50s and the 60s that they're in far, far worse shape. From those early, especially the very early cameras that we had in the 50s that were color, commercial color cameras. But that same technique will work. So this is my grandmother in 1955 and my great-grandfather. And this picture is really washed out. You can see that we can do the same levels fix on this, and it'll have the same effect. Take the blues, there we go, bring it up, then go to the greens, bring that up, and go to the reds, and bring that down. And I actually am still looking at the wood here, and I'm feeling like we've got just a little bit too much red even then. So I'm going to bring it down so it's not ringing, and then go back to the blues and take a look at that. And I don't know if we need to bring that up. We need to bring that up, I think. Looks like there. I'm going to take the greens and adjust to that point right here. Right. So just taking a look, Uncle Bud's face. I don't know why we called him Uncle Bud. He was my great-grandfather. I have no earthly idea. It's a Southern thing. I don't get it. Anyway, It was Aunt Betty and Uncle Bud. You got me. But you can see that using this same technique, I can take here and go from here to here and get just the basic color out, right? Now, the truth is, you could probably also apply an anti-yellow filter to it because a lot of these 50s pictures turn yellow over time. And it's just the nature of the emulsion. The emulsion eats through the crystals on the paper at some point in time. And it's the same kind of thing that we get with 70s. The 70s were the same issue. We get kind of that, the emulsion eats through the picture and stuff like that. So, but this picture looks a whole lot better. We've got natural colors here. Her skin tone looks natural. It's kind of interesting looking at my grandmother when she was about my age. Maybe a little younger than me. I think this is when she was in her 30s. So, because she was born in the 20s, this would have been the 50s. So this is mid to late 30s. My mom was born, but was little at this point in time, So it is always fascinating because I can see in her face all the things that I remember of my grandmother, but it looks so youthful. It's like, and then of course, Uncle Bud I never met. Uncle Bud passed away in the 60s before I was born. So I only know of Uncle Bud. Aunt Betty was the only one that I met, and I met her, and she passed away in 75. So I have only vague memories of Aunt Betty. Always interesting. I'm always interested in the stories. So it's always about stories with me. Either it's the story of what I'm doing with my work, like Bellatrix Rising, could even be my family story. I find this fascinating too, and just cleaning up and correcting pictures is amazing to me. So, okay. I don't know if I have. Let's look in 55. There's nothing in 55. So I feel like I want to save this in a different folder. So I'll save as into 55 because this is 1955. So I will put 1955 I1 store CA. And what this tells me, the CA tells me that this date may or may not be right. We don't know. Again, I'll save it as, I don't need to make it maximum, so 1.9 megs. It's not, there is enough detail loss in this picture. If we look here, there's enough detail loss here that no matter which way we look at it, it is not going to help us any at all to save it as a high resolution photo because there's no detail to save. You can see the wood grain here, but all we're really saving is these dots and specks, which, by the way, there's a filter for that. You go into noise and dust and scratches. That will work, trying to figure out how to get rid of it. You don't want to make it too much, but you can. That's a median. But another one that we can use, noise, is the speckle, which will pass through here. It still doesn't damage stuff, but it gets rid of things. I can't get rid of the flying spaghetti monster here without actual work, so we're going to have to get in there and do that. I'm not going to worry about the speckle at this point in time. We're okay here. This is all good. So I'm just going to leave that and say no. Okay, now that we have done that, well, I had a portrait of my mother, which this is a colorized black and white. It was an actual black and white photo, but then someone painted, airbrushed it, or colorized it. The question really is, once you've done that, is there anything you can do for it, right? Is this black? That's probably not. So it's probably already established pretty well there. So let's take a look at its color channels. You know, can we make it yellower, bluer? Just adjusting some of this. It looks like all of this has been. It looks like I did a first pass correction on this already. There we go. This, I believe, looks like it's in the 60s. So why it's in my 50s folder is beyond me. So I think I'm going to save this and put it in my 60s folder. Because she's definitely in her late teens, early 20s. And my mom was born in 50 or in 45. So 55, 60, 1, 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there. 19. I'm going to give it a guess. That's mom. Pretty close to 18. So that'd be 63. 45 to 55. 55 to 65. So 63. And I'll put it in here. I'm steering by watching over here. That's not good. Okay, there we go. Now we've done that. I think it kind of brought up some of the best parts of sort of how to do these things. So that works. All right, let's go into work. Let's go to work. Folks, let's go to work. I'll bring the spotlight back to me while I go to work here. Because we're working on Fred's piece. Let's take a look here. What were we working on last? I remember we were in the middle of a piece and we needed to figure out something else on that piece. Were we still working on the campfire piece? I think we were. I feel like we were. I cannot count to 4. And don't accuse me of that, Fred. Okay. Let's open up page 116. Because we were working on this page when we last saw our heroes. So, okay, here we go. Campsite here. We just gotten the basic rough sketch out for this. Let's go back here and spotlight it. Okay. We got a camping scene here, and this is a very rough sketch. So we're still in rough sketch mode. Because I know that, I mean, this over here looks like it's finalized more, but this still looks very rough. And it's going to need to be worked on a bit. So let's give that some work. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, pick my brushes here. Oh, that's right. We don't have brushes. Because this is a completely clean load of. So, we will import brushes. Go on to my OneDrive. Is render important? Photoshop brushes. Yes, it is. All right. And we got all the Nagel, which is the one that I really wanted to get. I did like these Groot brushes. They were pretty cool. There's a cloud brush set, some other things here. These were all of my brushes that were, I use these a lot. So like these matte Hey, Matt will be downloading these brushes. Yeah, we can replace the Warren. Because this Warren over here, while we download these brushes, which apparently is going to take forever, this Warren over here on this other side is just there because it's a thing. I can certainly replace it. What would you like me to replace it with? Is the question. And it's going to take 200 seconds for this to come down. So, which race would you like me to replace the Warren with, Fred? It's going to take 200 seconds for this. It's going to take 2 minutes. Take 3 minutes. So, because if we want to do that, that'd be fine. I spend a lot of time waiting on my computer. I do apologize for this. A lot of this, I have a tech list of what needs to be done right here. And like there are things like I've managed to get Daz 3D loaded. That's good. The music's running, and I've got it even rigged pretty good on the with a Yuka man. Okay, I can do that. I've got the music I think balanced. I'm hoping you guys are hearing the music being balanced. Is what I'm hoping for. But if you're not, tell me. I mean, because that's an important thing. I re-rigged my audio while we wait for this. I re-rigged my audio to go through my soundboard now. And what I've got going for me is the direct line out from my computer now goes into my board straight. And then I split the line out from the speakers out. I split it coming out of the computer, and one half goes to my speakers right here, so I can hear my own music. And one half goes into the board, and then I locked my board's controls right here so that they are completely locked in. So I'm hoping you guys are hearing a nice mix of my music and my voice, and not an obnoxious mix of my music and voice. Yeah, here's to hoping, by the way, that this is what we're looking for. Almost there. So, okay. Now let's take a look at these brushes. Yeah, there's my sketch pencils and things like that. Some good watercolors. But more importantly, I can, let's see, use a folder, create folder. Let's see if I can create a new folder. There we go. So here's the trick, by the way. Okay, perfect. Everything has to be downloaded. Here's the trick that nobody knows about. My brushes over here. Where'd my brushes go? There we go. Here's a trick that people don't know about. You can just take these and move them, right? I liked his HB sketch pencil. And I even kind of liked his charcoal. And he has a couple of comic inks. This one, which I really like a lot. And this one, which I really like a lot. So, this, you can move brushes around. Completely blew my mind. I was like, how can I get that? Because I had a ton of these from different locations and different things. And, um, like all of this stuff's great, but I don't need it really. I always wondered about his halftone brush. Like, that's kind of nifty, actually. I'm not going to lie. That could work really well. So, but tubular bodies with a head, arms, and legs. Heads in the crown of thorn-tipped leaves here. So they're cactus. They're people mixed with cactuses. Now, they would be. There we go. And you said go to page 169. Looking up 169. Whoa, back up. For those of you at home, I brought up his with Yuka. Gotcha. I brought up his main book. Okay. 169. This is a big piece. Oh, I see. Okay. So, tubular-ish, but not super tubular. The bunny guy here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put in. I'm just getting the rough shape in. I'll figure this out. I think it'd be funny if you were roasting a carrot, but the truth is I don't think you're roasting a carrot. Going to leaves there and some multiple digits that I need for it. Okay, we can work on that. There we go. it does make you wonder about a few things. Like, if you are a plant person, as these yucca would be, would you have like an aversion to fire? Would you need to be warm? These are all the things that kind of make me wonder, right? I mean, do you need to be warm in the same way? Zoom in over here and get down here on this. Would you need to be sort of now do this, just straighten that out. Take this a bit here to get kind of into this groove again. I'm kind of envisioning this guy being some kind of older guy, right? Like he's the old wise Yucca of the North. So I'm giving him more of a hunched back, like this. Shaking this around. Get some youth out of his face here. I mean, higher cheekbones, more like this. He's got more of a feel like a statue. Give him old sounds. These scenes and global things in his day. You mean yucca? That's because it's YUCCA. I had never met these things in real life, like the plant that you're talking about. I know that it's uh, like uh, a type of cactus, but for the life of me, I've never met one or actually been in the neighborhood of one when somebody has said the name. So I am pronouncing it as I read it. Is it supposed to be yucca? Is that an At which time that makes it funnier because then it's like yucky, and that's probably true. I'm sure eating these things would not be any fun. So, is that? Yucca. Yucca. Don't eat this stuff. Makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna kind of come back around on his forehead here, and I'm just adding the spikes going out like this, so that there's sort of a logic behind how this works. Let's also do something like this. There we go. Oh, why? That looks really strange. I'm gonna have to fix his legs. And his arm. Boy, he's starting to look kind of like he's starting to look like a cave painting of himself. When you've gone way off the rails, and I'm way off the rails here, then we go back to swatches, and let's get a non-photo blue, and let's talk about his anatomy. There's that. There's this. And then one leg I feel like I'm going to be here. And the other leg I feel like I'm here. I don't worry about his hands. But I want him hunched over. I like the face. We're good there. But I'm feeling like this is where his torso should be right through here. It's interesting to note, cave drawings, they didn't have a little technology. The technology that they needed to have was they needed to be able to do an underdrawing. They can't do an underdrawing on caves. They can't do an underdrawing on cavern walls. You can't do underdrawings on the walls of Egyptian tombs. So all of those where you've got this weird sort of stylized human being, a lot of the reason that it's stylized is because underdrawings didn't exist. Now that I've done that, here, check my underdrawing. So it's interesting that technology changes. Little technologies you don't think about, like being able to just use a piece of paper to trace over your underdrawn, changes everything on this. Right? And this arm can go this way. We do right there. And that's probably more what we want to do. It's a stack of wood that he's using for the fire. So we put him in the middle of grabbing another one of these. So I'm going to bring these down. Light color there. I'm going to go in and we're just going to fix this. Get rid of this. It's neutral. Let's go. This yucca guy. Yuck. Nope. Got the wrong side of the hand. I'm giving him long, spindly hands. They're just going to end in these thorns. You can't really see as well. There. So what I'm doing now is just putting sort of. I'm envisioning him be like the old sage Indian, right? Got wisdom to disperse, and he's dispersing it to this guy over here. I'm going to go ahead and draw this arm out. When you hold something like that, I see that this thumb is in front, so I really need to bring up this thumb to here. Piece of wood, and he's now sort of moving it from one location to the other. Legs here. I'm going to go in here on this tent pole and take the tent pole out. His legs want to be, you want his legs to be somewhat slender, but I don't want to, I'm having obviously a conflict here. There we go. So flatten. Let me give him long roots. Yep. Yep, you're right. I'm a native Coloradan, but you're right. I'm from over here in Denver, and on that slope, we just don't have any yuccas. Uh, and that's probably what it is. You're absolutely right. I mean, I know intellectually I know what they are, but I haven't really seen any of them. I am much more familiar with like saguaro. I've also noticed that when it's a foreign word, I tend to pronounce foreign words in Japanese. That's like my foreign language. Since I speak Japanese, but that's my second language, when my brain switches to second language, it switches over to an instant Japanese pronunciation for anything. And I think that's common to a lot of people. I think a lot of people do that. You know? Let's get this stack of wood in here too. There we go. Let's take a look at this piece. It's better, but I still feel like I need to work with stuff. I feel like, first of all, his thigh doesn't look right. Let's go in here and fix that. His thigh should be higher up, like this. Is the angle we're at here. That's better. I still feel like his chest is too barrel chested for this. Huh. That's horribly useful. And frankly, I hope I never have to use survival skills like that. But it's good to know. Don't break off any of this poor old guy's stuff, because he'd be sad. Okay, the other thing I'm feeling like is no matter which way we put it, I feel like his head's just a little too big. Right. So what I'm going to do is bring that down there. Perfect. I'm a head shrinker. That's good. Okay. That looks a whole lot better. There we go. So that's more where we're headed on this, I feel like, which is good. He's sitting down with this guy's sitting down with the old wise dude. I feel like that's a much better. Now we fix him. Where would I find the feel like this is 116. If this is 116, we're probably dealing with do. Pokes. So those guys are pokes. Okay. So this guy is a poke right here. So let's get him small. He needs to be smaller than the yucca. Which is good because you can't really see his coffee here, and that's kind of cool. So there's that. So let's go through here and fix this guy. Coffee mug right here. He's got a foot. It's going to be right here because his legs are crossed as he sits kind of cross-legged here, telling wonderful stories of whatever of yore. Tells stories of phenomenal, large. This reminds me, what happened to aircraft at this point in time? I know you've got dirigibles, but what happened to actual airplanes? I guess fuel is difficult to come by for them. But would they be mythological at this point? It does make me wonder. Once was a time when there were phenomenal metal birds that flew through the air and I feel like this poke is telling a fish story. It was this big. And the old man's just humoring it. I feel like that's what's going on here. The old man's humoring him. He's telling a fish story about something happening in his life. Maybe? Maybe not. I have to think about that. Yeah, maintenance and fuel makes it difficult. Oh. There we go. I figured. I always think about like things like I would love to be in this story with an airplane. You know, like what a character that'd be. Someone who has an airplane. Well, he's still telling a fish story. I feel like I've got this anatomy screwed up. Is what I feel like. You know, I'm looking at his structure and his body, and I really just don't have him with his arm up. So maybe his arm is just down here. It still looks like he's still telling fish stories. I'm not going to argue with you, Fred. I'm not going to argue with you, man. We'll just be who we are. All right. That's all. I'm from here, and we're good. I am who I am. You are who you are. I am still looking at the bottom here, and it says that I have 0 people watching this, which is funny because I know I'm talking to at least Fred. And somewhere in here, I had Brent, and somewhere else I had Donald, and Brent, and Fred on here at the same time. And so I think it lies, folks. Just saying. One of the reasons that I am abandoning Google at some point in time. Really? Because I never noticed. I guess, does that mean that there's somebody who pronounces it not Colorado? Do they pronounce it with that Colorado? With that lower squish on the A? I think I've noticed that too. Because it's considered our accent to use that very sharp A, Colorado. That's considered our accent. We don't have much of an accent other than that, but that seems to be part of the cultural. Once you get out of town, it starts becoming Colorado with that lower ah. I have noticed that, and I noticed that because my mom was a talent agent, and people would direct talent. They would want talent from Colorado because we had almost no accent except for that flat A. That's the only thing we have as an accent. We other than that we sound unidentifiable. But yeah, I can always tell where people are from by their raw or their ra. Whether it's Colorado or Colorado. I found that interesting. I also noticed the Texans pronounce it Colorado. So that other part of wherever you get out into the country, where it's raw, that raw goes down into Texas. Because people in Houston would say, "Oh, you're from Colorado?" Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm from Colorado. It's like, just saying. Colorado? I've never heard that. I know I've heard the difference between the raw and the ra. Colorado. I can see where that's coming from. Colorado. Yeah, Colorado. Yeah, I see that. I'm saying it a lot. The other thing you can tell non-natives is when they call us Coloradoans instead of Coloradans. That's how you can tell non-natives, because we're Coloradans. That's That's the diminutive of it. That's what you call that. Coloradans. There's no O. The O is gone. But you can always tell people who are not local because they'll call us Coloradoans. It's like that's so complicated and such a mouthful. It's difficult. And it's funny. Just fixing up his thumb here. I don't know. Should he be? He should be smiling. I feel like he looks kind of sad. I feel like he invited this guy over. Share a meal with him. And he's getting the story out of it. This is me in this field. I'd be the old storyteller who all I really want to do is sit down by the fire, drink some coffee, and hear a story. Tell me your story. And then you tell me some fish story, probably. But, yeah. And over here, that's my wife. She'd be like, okay, enough with your stories. I'm going to bed. For those of you who are watching who are not local, we just had a whole long discussion. Yeah, doesn't surprise me that you guys call us Greenies. Yes, as long as you don't call us Greenies, we're fine. And there is a Colorado joke for all of you people. Sort of a we'll just add in some of this color just to make this kind of dark. Just putting in some darkness. Because this tent is... You know, they're talking about flipping the colors again. As a side note towards license plates, I've seen, when I was still working as a driving instructor, of course, we got all the news from the DMV, and apparently they've decided to go on ahead and flip the colors again, so it'll be green on the bottom and white on the top, instead of white on the bottom and green on the top. I don't know why. So, you'll start seeing greenies again. This is another one of those. How the government works is sometimes just amazingly amazing to me. And I don't know exactly how that ended up happening, but it did. So there you go. There's a bit of trivia for the day. Apparently we're going to have our old license plates back. I still have the license plate off of my first car. I actually found it in the basement. And I kept it after my car was crushed in the crusher. Because it had caught fire. And I had to drive it to the crusher without the ignition. We just had hot wired the ignition to a button on the dashboard, so you push the button to start the starter solenoid. because all the electricals have fried out. Poor car. Uh, I still think of my Vega with great fondness. So it's like there is some dear love for my old Vega, but it is indeed a mess. It was a messy little car. It was great. I loved it. It was a great first car. I have so many stories about that Vega. When my child is old enough to get a car, I hope he's as lucky to have a piece of junk as mine. It's such a good experience. Great stories. Extraordinarily frustrating when I was a kid, but now as I'm older, I look back on that with fondness. There we go. Okay. Putting in some shadow helps with this a lot. I'm just putting in some darkness behind them so that they've got kind of you're going to get like a glow around here, so you're not going to get a lot of that. It's not going to, there's not going to be a lot of black around that fire pit, obviously. And I'm going to give just a little bit of room around characters to make them fit here. And I'm going to put in some mountains and stuff like that. So this. And what we're doing here is just putting in sort of, like terrain in the background that obviously is some kind of mountain of some sort that you can kind of see in the distance. As they camp up here in this plane. Alright, move this over to the other side. Same thing over here. Just make this a nice outdoor scene here. I'm just gonna do this. Just giving, and just like it's dark out here, right? I mean, you gotta be careful not to get too close to the text up above. But I can get under here, and it's dark, and we're just gonna fill this in with darkness here. Now I'm gonna go in and tighten this up in a minute. But for right now, I'm just trying to fill in all of the areas that would obviously be black around all of these characters like this. just like this. So we're just trying to kind of establish sort of a darkness around all these creatures here. These guys are all asleep over here. They're all curled up, going to sleep, and we're just kind of. So, it's kind of, it's kind of doing this number as the darkness sort of encroaches on them. Right? Just going to kind of do this. And he's casting a shadow as well, so let's go ahead and do that. And we'll come back in and clean that up. He's also going to have a dark side to him. Front. It's just establishing there's a light source is right here. Zoom in some more and go and fix up some of these little spots. Like this guy here doesn't need to be all. We need to be able to see the cable that's holding the door up. Let's make some small brush here for this. Just like that. And I'm just going to do this. Just fix that, right? I'm also going to give us some stars out here. And then clean up down here. If you're going to do that, you have to have a stark transition between the two. To clearly indicate difference between the two here. And when I have, this character has a deep shadow behind him. So one of the things I'm going to do is once I've kind of attached everything over here, I'm going to use the eraser as a drawing tool. Because this has gotten all dark, and it's hard to actually see the outside edge, so I'll do this. And just define parts of him so that he still exists and you can still see him. Right? So, bringing that back around like this. All right. Here, same thing over here. Just to find something that's right in here, like this. And it's going to be this number. On this guy, I'm going to leave a leading edge. Like that. And that way we don't interfere with the artwork. This. We've got about 3 minutes left. I'm going to go on here in just a second. I'm going to go around his quills. Again, I'm still leaving just a little bit of a distance in here between his quills and the sky out here, and this just allows me to give a gap that's usable. Same thing I'm going to do over here with these mountains. I'm going to kind of define the other edge. Come back in just there we go. All right. We still have another, 30 minutes or so on this piece, but I feel like it's coming along really nicely. And I feel like we could probably do wrap this piece up next or tomorrow during our show, except tomorrow's Friday. So I'll be working with Pepper on our artist check-in. So you can tune in with me on the artist check-in. But either way, we'll be finishing this either tomorrow or Monday, depending on where Pepper stands, because sometimes Pepper isn't available, and so we don't have to do the artist check-in. So I'm going to go on ahead, and I'm glad. Well, I'm glad, Fred. I really am. It's coming along real nicely. It looks good at the bottom of the page. It's going to be a nice bumper piece to this. It'll look real good. So we'll come along with it. So, okay. So we'll either wrap this up tomorrow or we'll wrap this up Monday. Either way. And then we've got a couple of other pieces. We're down to pretty much the full size pieces in here, and those are the hardest ones to do. I can see that there's a piece on 119 that's probably smaller-ish. We still have to finish the piece on 117, so we've got some pieces that are still needing to be done. So we'll go on ahead and do those at some point here. But, our time's up for today, so we're going to go ahead and break for lunch. Go have lunch, guys. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks. Bye-bye.